Welcome back to Wedlocked and Loaded.
Wedlocked and loaded.
You women.
Do not lump us all in one category.
So you girls, and lie and stretch the truth
You
and try
girls,
to get us jammed up.
First of all, I'm a whole ass woman, right? Think about
No
that.
disrespect.
Sounds like it to me. So why can't y'all? What is it with men that they just can't walk away?
Depends how good it is. You don't want to give that away. This is gonna be a very well needed show. We actually alluded to this conversation maybe 2 weeks ago now. But sometimes I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. Yes. And so we wanted to bring an expert in the space and really address some of the things that we discussed. So she should be joining any minute. And look who we have. Look at that management, as they call her. How are you, my sweet love?
I'm very well. How are you?
Huh?
I'm very well. How are you?
Oh boy. Oh, Java with Jimmy. He's only here for the nice. Very, very nice. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. All right, so we are gonna bring my dear old friend Stephanie Johnson in the room.
Hello.
Steph! So what's weird is I can't I know why. Oh, I figured it out. For some reason I put my Bluetooth on, but now we're good. Okay, so everyone can hear. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Yep.
Yep.
Right. All right. So Wedlocked and Loaded, Wednesday, November 16th. November's flying by. Is this your first live, Stephanie?
This is my first live. Yes. You saw the technical difficulties. I was on a whole Google Meet.
Jesus Christ. So are you basically saying that Wedlocked and Loaded officially like popped your cherry, or?
Yes, it did. It did.
Nice. Okay. So people know who we are, but before we get into the discussion, I want you to introduce yourself, because we met obviously at another place. And I remember when you left, I was really sad and I didn't quite understand. I'm like, well, why is she doing this? And you had a passion and you followed it. And I'm so proud that you stuck with it and you built it to what it is. So I want you to introduce yourself and what you do, and then we'll get into a discussion.
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Johnson, and I am the owner and founder of Roots Midwifery, a home birth midwifery practice here in the Boston area. I just celebrated my 3rd year of owning my own practice, but I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, about 4.5, 5 years, just, attending births as a midwife. So it's been a long journey, a long, hard journey, but here I am.
And you've been has anybody been mentoring you and giving you guidance, or it's all trial and error and you just figuring it out?
Pretty much. When I initially started, the women that I precepted with gave me, some of the foundation to get this business piece kind of started. And of course, just Googling and connecting with different business owners, I was able to find some pieces of how to start a business, basically. But the kind of meat of all of this, all on my own. I have many mentors, midwife mentors, that I've come across over the years, and elder midwives who have really kind of loved on me and held me in my most difficult times and busiest times and times where I needed, support, and, friends and family, etc. So, I have a great community, and I really kind of owe my community for me being here, because when I was going through the schooling and the apprenticeship and all of that, people were cheering me on the sidelines. So, part of the success is from you guys too. So.
And so let me ask, Leah she's going to chime in a second. I think her Wi-Fi was like circling.
Yep.
Um, so, you know, it takes a certain type of person, obviously, to go into something where, as guys, yes, childbirth is beautiful,
Yep.
right? There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
However, however, it gets a little sticky and crunchy, and that's not for everybody.
Right.
And not everyone thinks it's so warm and fuzzy, and guys actually pass out,
Yep.
right? But for you to lean into, like, I feel like it's a certain kind of love and appreciation that you have to have, I think, to even want to get into that space. And all the emotions and the things going on, and you're dealing with someone who, whether this is their first or their fifth,
Right.
it's all that. You are not only providing a service, but you're also counseling, and you're also, being a shoulder to lean on. And, who knows if it's a dual family household and you got that dynamic and all that type of stuff. Like, what made you want to embark in that space versus being a stockbroker?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little bit of sort of how I got here. I think that would help. So as a kid, I was always the one who was playing house. I always was the one who worked with my, my childhood friends. They would be the ones having the babies. I was the one attending to them and caring for their babies, etc. I don't know where it came from or why it was a thing, but it was. And so initially I wanted to be a pediatrician because I loved working with babies. But then I really connected with sort of the connectedness of the dyad. So the mom, the baby, and, the partner. And so when I became a mother myself, I really honed into, okay, what are we going to do with life? Because I really didn't want to do, 12 years of medical school and then residency and then, whatever else specialty you had to do to become a doctor. And so I came across finding midwifery, but nurse midwifery. And so I entered into college and kind of started that journey. And at some point, someone was like, yeah, well, there's like a 2-year wait to get in the nursing program. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So when I have something on my mind, I need to make it happen. And so I basically kind of deviated, and I was like, I'm not going to wait. I need to get this done now. And so I moved from the prerequisites of that to doing like a bunch of other classes throughout, my 20s. And then when I started approaching 30, I was like, you know what? Let me revisit this, because it really never left me. The yearning to do this work never left me. And so I ended up applying to nursing school, and I actually got in. And so I did that program for a year and a half, 2 years, because I had all the prerequisites by the time I got there. So I literally just went in and started doing clinicals. And I just felt like it just wasn't the type of care that I wanted to provide. It was very kind of sterile. It was very regimented. And I honestly didn't want to be doing med surg for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was, because at the time you had to do that before you can go into a specialty. And so I switched majors, I got a different degree, and then I still wanted to do this work. And so I became a doula. So I did that for about 5 years. I became a lactation consultant. I became a childbirth educator. And then I was like, okay, what's the next step? And the next step was really kind of growing from that space. And I wanted to work with the women in my community, and how could I best serve them? So I ended up going back to school. And during that time, that's when I started connecting with a bunch of my mentors that I still have today. And one of them was like, well, why not think about midwifery again? And I'm like, listen, I've been in school for like 15 years, and we're not even including like, the primary from 1 to 5 and then, 9 to 12. I'm just over it. And she was like, but this is really what midwifery is about. It's women who have experience, who have already had children, who had community connections, etc. And I think you would be a really good fit. And so I was like, okay, I'll look into it. And I did. And literally every door opened from me from that point, from looking into the different schools. I found the school that, fit best for me. I got a full scholarship. I, got into apprenticeship really easily. I was able to come back home, so I didn't have to really worry about finances. So a lot of things kind of played a role. And at that time, that's where like the piece about home birth midwifery came about. So it wasn't really what I knew, 20 years prior. It really is something relatively new to me within the past like 10 years or so. And so to connect it all, when I did my first semester in midwifery school, we had a class on history about grand midwives and the history of grand midwives. And there was, in the very first chapter, a story about a midwife in North Carolina, in this like small little town in North Carolina, which was where my father was from. So it's like literally a blip. You drive through it really quickly when you go through North Carolina. And so I just happened to ask my dad, I'm like, yeah, maybe this midwife was your midwife. She was the person who delivered you. And he was like, no, but your grandmother was. And I'm like, pause, what? Because first of all, my father's mother passed away before I was born, so I never met her. And to hear after all these years that she actually was doing the work that I was about to get into, and I had no recollection of that's what she ever was doing, is like the light bulb just went off in that moment. And so it really kind of connected the dots for me and helped me understand like this was not only embedded in me, but also my calling. And so here we are.
And when you left the place, was you going to nursing school? That's what you left for?
Oh, so I think I was doing nursing school while I was there. I think I was doing starting the program when I was there. And then I started after that. Yeah, because I think right when I left, I was just finishing up because I think I graduated. I don't think I was there when I graduated. Yeah.
So, and Leah, you can chime in whenever. I just, it's just very interesting to me because I remember it's just funny. And it just seems like, being gone so long, and I know it must feel the same way for you, being gone so long and you go back and it was such a big place. But when you go back, you're like, this is like so small. Like I was here for so long. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there's a lot that you took from there.
Yep.
And systems and customer service and all that type of stuff, and you can apply that and change it and remix it.
Yep.
But so just on an ignorant level, I'm speaking from pure ignorance. So when you're talking, I'm like, is she saying? Obviously, you're saying this on purpose because you're the expert. I say midwifery. That's wrong?
No, some people say midwifery, same thing. I know what you mean.
Okay. Leah, how would you say it? Do you say what do you say?
I've never had to use that term in my life.
So
I know, I guess with, I guess the present tense would be midwife. Like I've said that, but I've never said it.
Like Pat, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, because there's one thing, and I did some reading earlier in the CDC. It says that, and I don't know if this is like current, but like 43 per 100,000 live births. The Black maternal mortality rate, the number for Black women is 43 per 100,000. Does that sound?
For what?
So I guess like the babies who are born and the mother
has an adverse
died, or at risk.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it used to be 1 in 3. I think it's like 1 in 3, between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4. So every 1 in 3 mothers, Black mothers, are affected by complications during pregnancy, birth, or postpartum. Yes.
And, you know, so from someone who, and Leah spoke on this, and this is what prompted, you know, like, have to have you on, right? So Leah spoke on her story, and maybe just for context, Leah, can you share, I guess, like the Cliff Notes version of, do you remember the story you shared?
Oh, yes. When I was pregnant with my first child, um, you know, I took the spinal bifida Down syndrome. I took that test. And it came back that my child was going to have Down syndrome. From there, you know, they was like, oh, we can do an amniocentesis and this, that, and the next. Now the thing is that by the time you got the results from that spinal bifida test, you were well into your second trimester, right? And so, like, really, what are you gonna do?
Right.
You know? Anyway, I refused the amniocentesis because it was very risky. And so it was just like, you know, you could be wrong. Now I'm at a higher risk of losing my child because of whatever. Fast forward, baby, you know, did genetic testing, which stressed me out a whole lot because it wasn't as simple as come one visit. It was multiple visits for multiple hours, multiple days, you know? Fast forward of that, baby's born, nice and healthy, right? Pregnant with child 2. I don't even go back to that hospital. I'm like, yeah, I'm all set. You know, I'm all set. We're not doing this. You're not going to stress me out. Went to another location and it was time for that test again. But I had a Black nurse this time, and she was like, I had a white doctor, but a Black nurse. And she was just like, yeah, so it's really up to you. You don't have to take this test, right? Because it's not accurate in African American women. And I was like, you ain't going to stress me out. I'm all set. Like, if it's really not necessary, I'm not doing it. So we didn't do it, you know, and I didn't do it for my third child. And if I was, well, I'm not having a fourth one, but had I had a fourth one, I wouldn't have done it for the fourth one. So can you, like, how does that, like, is that something that is, you know, was she pretty accurate in certain things, not having accurate results in Black women or Black people?
Yeah,
period?
so things are, and I was saying, I remember when you were pregnant with Legacy and Daniel. And so that was what, how long was Legacy? Like,
don't do that.
Nope. Well, I was breaking the context because things have changed. So right now, a lot of that testing is either blood work or just an ultrasound. So less invasive is basically my point. And all of the tests are screens. So you do it the first time. You did a screening, they found something came up in whatever those numbers were, and then they go the next step, which is an amniocentesis, which it would be more of a confirmation of whatever those, whatever that possible diagnosis was. So it's kind of like a standard of care in hospitals. So the other part, I should probably clarify that I work outside of a hospital setting. So, you know, what I do on the outside of a hospital setting is different than what happens in the hospital because they're bound by all the different protocols and rules relations,
Right.
etc. Whereas for me, I still offer all of those tests. However, we do informed choice. So instead of me, say you did that exam with me, 20 years ago, and talking about now, we would have a conversation. This is what it is. This is why you would do it. These are the risks and benefits, and what could possibly happen if you went to have the amniocentesis. And then you can decide, do I want to actually put my pregnancy and my baby at risk by doing that testing? Most people say no. And so, then the part with the Black nurse is exactly kind of what I do. So we look at risk factors, right? So a lot of those risk factors are determined by genetics. So do you have immediate family that have those particular, they're usually trisomies, so particular trisomies, or any other genetic abnormalities that need to be looked at for your current pregnancy. If you don't fit in that category, let's go to the next one. What is your, race, your not only your ethnicity, your social risk factors, things like that. Basically, we come down a list of different tiers of where you fit in that category. And the majority of people will say, we don't fit. So why are we doing those tests? Again, I offer it, but we have a conversation. So it's not like, hey, you're in my care, I'm just sending you. And most times people don't even know what they're going in for. They're going for a doctor's appointment. At the end of the appointment, they're like, yeah, we scheduled you to be at so-and-so place on this time, just show up. And you get there and you're, brought in and doing all this testing, have no clue what it is. They may give you like a brief synopsis of what it is, but that's it. They don't give you the full detail of what this would all mean. And so,
and they also, I mean, like I was saying, like they don't, for me, I like to know that I have an option, but like the first go round, it seemed like, oh, this is all the standard things that are absolutely mandatory. Like you have no option here.
Yep. And
know?
That's pretty much how it is. It's like you have no, I mean, you do, but you don't, right? So
right. Well, they don't let you know that you do, right? Like
it's like you just walk in and you basically are submitting to any and everything,
whatever
unless
they say.
you know differently, that you can say, well, pause. I need to know more about that test. I need you to tell me all the details. I need you to tell me the risk and benefits. And then also the question I ask a lot of people is, what are you going to do with that information, right? So if you find out that your baby has one of these genetic disorders, would you terminate the pregnancy? Most people say no. So then why are we going through that, invasive procedure if you probably won't? So.
Well,
yeah. So that's why I refused the amniocentesis, because like I said, by the time we got the results back from that first initial screening, it was just like, I'm 5 to 6 months. But like, and in order to terminate the pregnancy at that point, now I gotta, I'm giving birth.
Yep.
No, thank you. And just to think of how many people who have actually terminated, and then whatever test they did afterwards, and find out like, oh, oops, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, most of these tests they're good indicators, but not 100%. They're not 100%. And so but for a lot of people, they're not telling them that. So you go in, you just think, if they tell me I have it, I absolutely have it, right? Same ultrasounds. If I go in and they tell me I absolutely have it, I must absolutely have it. A lot of times it's not, I won't say a lot of times, but some of the time it's not the case, right? So certain things that are common, I'm not going to, sugarcoat it and say that if they see a malformation of a baby or whatever, that your baby can possibly be perfect. It possibly could be, it may not be, I don't know. But that type of person or that pregnancy wouldn't be in my care anyway once that diagnosis comes about. But for me, what I see a lot of is like people will go in for ultrasounds, for instance, and it will be they see something on the kidney, which is like this common, thing that they see on a lot of babies. They grow out of it. So you go in for that anatomy between 18 and 20 weeks. By the time the baby gets to 40, the baby is bigger. It grows out of it. It's not a problem. All it requires is a follow-up visit with the pediatrician after birth. Simple. But if they tell you that, they're like, oh my God, the baby has this, something's wrong with their kidneys is what they say, right? And then you're freaking out for the next 20 weeks because you expect some dramatic, complication with your baby's kidneys, and you're only thinking the worst, right? You're not thinking, oh, it's just a matter of them monitoring it. It may not be a bad thing, or they actually probably could fix it. It still may not be a bad thing. So you stress yourself out, building up, the cortisol levels, et cetera, possibly having hypertension in pregnancy, which leads to other complications, because no one is explaining the things to you during, these visits.
How important is advocacy in during this process, instead of the blind trust that sometimes tends to happen?
Very important. I think, I always say not everybody's going to do a home birth, and I'm okay with that. And most people are okay with that as well. But I explain to people, if you don't do this type of care, the least you can do is educate yourself on what happens when you're in a hospital setting. You need to prepare yourself for the conversations. You need to prepare yourself for the pushback. You need to know your rights in the hospital, because everything that they tell you may not necessarily be the end all be all, right? Everyone has rights when you go into the hospital. You can refuse certain things. You can refuse everything, actually. Having DCF being called on you because you don't want to vaccinate your child is not against the law, but you need to know these things before you go in, versus you go in, it happens, and then you're freaking out and you're trying to respond. It's better to know what the expectations are of the hospital, but also what you want out of that experience prior to being in that space.
And now, okay, let me just ask this question. Is the majority of do you call them clients?
Mm-hmm.
Are they clients?
Yes.
So, patients?
Nope, clients.
Clients. So is the majority of your clients women of color?
Yep. Okay.
Like, what's the percentage of it?
I would say about 97%.
97?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's dope.
So for the 3%, for the 3%, have you observed blatant care differences and disparities as opposed to the other 97?
Yes. So part of the reason why that 3% comes to me is either for their first birth, they had a traumatic experience, so they're looking for a different experience the second time, or whatever number time pregnancy. Or they've done their research and they just know, like, I don't want to be in the hospital. Whether it's because their friends or family or whatever have had really bad experiences, or they also feel like they don't have any control over their experience. So if they've done, sort of some research on who's available, et cetera, they come across me. I think a few people have known me from like the doula circle, the doula community, and were referrals. So whatever way they get there, I would say probably about 95% of my clients, if they're not first-time moms, are coming to me because of poor experiences with the first pregnancies.
Wow. And do you take so this question is, well, let me ask this first question. So can you, in layman's terms, because even when you and Leo talking and you're like, Leah said something and you knew exactly, and then you repeated it, and I had no, like, it's like y'all speaking Arabic. I have no idea what you're talking. Like, what was it, Leah? You said that they wanted to have you do the I don't
amniocentesis.
even know what you just said. But so can you explain in layman's terms a doula versus a midwife and the differences? Because in my mind, I always thought it was the same, just different names.
Right. So yes, let's clarify that because a lot of people do get them confused very often. So a doula is a person, oftentimes they are trained through whatever organization that they, connect with, and they are support people for the woman when they either in pregnancy, labor, or in the postpartum period. So what that looks like is typically the doulas connect with you prenatally before you have the baby. They do a few visits where they prepare you for childbirth. They, go through the signs and symptoms of labor. They do comfort measures and sort of do like a plan of what it's going to look like the day of your labor and your birth. They work with you to create a birth plan. And most times they, not most times, all the time, they do include whoever the partner is. So your husband, boyfriend, etc. And so then the day of the labor, because you already established when they arrive, you call them when you're in labor, and then that person either shows up at your home or at the hospital, and they support you throughout the labor process until you have the baby. They tend to stay maybe a couple of hours after the birth in the hospital, and then they may do one or two postpartum visits once you get home. I've had doulas with me in my at my home births, and they pretty much do the same thing. So they are there first. They're supporting the mom through that early labor stage and in the beginning of the active phase. Then I show up, and then, I basically take over as far as the medical portion of it. And then I fall back. So the difference between that and what I do is I'm the medical provider. So I'm the person who you're seeing for prenatal care, for all the diagnostic tests, the labs, the ultrasounds, all of that. Same thing that you would see an OB for, you would see me for, with the exception of if you had any complications or needed surgery or any medications, things like that, that would be for an OB. Me, I'm only doing low risk pregnancies, and that's what we're anticipating for the birth, is a low risk birth as well.
And so what if it is high risk, then you refer to?
Yep. So they would refer outside of our care. So at that point, they could do what I call supportive care, which is they get the midwifery prenatal piece of it. So they get to come see me and do all the prenatal appointments, that I would have done with my home birth client. So they get the education. So my appointments are, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour long. So we have lots of time to ask questions, to give education, to talk about what's happening in your world. You're stressed about this or that. I get to know my clients, which is great. And so I'm not a stranger to them. And they're not a stranger to me. I know what their needs are and their desires are, not only during pregnancy, but also for labor and birth, and also in the postpartum. So yeah.
So do you, your pay, is it private? Is it insurance? Is it both?
So unfortunately, home birth is not covered by insurance here in Massachusetts, so it isn't.
Of course it's not.
Mm-hmm. However, the ultrasounds and labs and things like that usually are covered by insurance.
So I know, and it wasn't a home birth, but with my second child, I was looking at water births. And none of the Boston hospitals provided that. I think at the time, Cambridge was the only one.
Yes.
That didn't. But then there was like a whole lot of hoopla with that. So like I felt like I looked into it, and it could have been my insurance at the time. I don't know, but it was just like, I felt like, dang, I felt like I didn't have any options.
Yeah.
Is that still the same?
So one, Cambridge Birth Center is closed. So it's no longer a thing. Yeah. They closed it during COVID, and they don't have any plans of opening back up. And there
Wow.
are several hospitals that do have tubs in their birthing rooms, but you cannot give birth in them. So that looks like,
Right.
I'll speak on a hospital that I worked at. I won't say the name, but I worked at it. It's probably the most popular one in the Boston area. And so they had two.
That's the same one that told me my baby's gonna have Down syndrome, I
Probably.
bet you. But go
Because
ahead.
that's the hospital. There's actually like whole doula boards to tell you don't go to. So they had two rooms that had labor tubs in there, and yet it was almost like it was this deserted room on the side of the hospital. They were barely used because they had to have, in order for you to be able to use it, the particular nurse who was trained to be in there had to be on. The nurse had to be trained. It couldn't be a busy shift, which we know that happens all the time. You had to tell your provider beforehand. So it was like all these like caveats. So basically you go in all excited, like, oh great, you have this birth pool. And then they start telling you all the things and ways that you basically are not going to get in that room. Since then, I've heard that a few people have used it, but you still can't get birth in it. So you labor in it. But as soon as the baby is imminent, they literally like make you get out and immediately becomes
Pull you out.
so
Yeah. There is benefits. I stayed in the shower I didn't have the tub, but I definitely stayed in the shower. I tried to anyway with all of my births because it's something about that water, that hot water that is a soother,
So that's, part of, I would say a good 80 to 90% of my clients do birth in the pool. So, and part of it is the laboring in the birth pool during the active labor phase because it feels good. We call it hydrotherapy. And doesn't necessarily take the pain away, but it relaxes you enough that you can manage it. And so it's good alternative to other pain meds and epidurals and things like that.
So with that being said, right, sorry, there was some technical difficulties and I had to jump off earlier. However, hopefully you did not answer this already. You mentioned epidurals. So are you
All natural birth.
Are you trained to give those? Do you give those, or are all your births that you do, are they all natural?
Yes, so all natural, no pain meds, no medications, with the exception of meds for hemorrhaging after the birth. So meds to basically control the bleeding, but no epidural, no nitrous oxide, no narcotics, any of that stuff. So that's why, our appointments are so long, because we're talking through, let's get through all the fears. Let's get through all the questions. Let's get through all the things that are holding you up so that you can't really surrender during your labor process. So by the time they get there, they're well prepared for what to expect and also how to manage it throughout.
And if someone comes to you and they've already had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And they know for certain that they want an epidural and they don't want to feel the pain. Do you immediately tap out and say this isn't a place for you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So we saw that most home birth midwives saw that during COVID. So COVID is really where all of us like exploded as far as, numbers and clients, etc. And what we were seeing, of course, hospitals weren't allowing partners. So that was the start of it. But then people just didn't want to be in the hospital during the COVID pandemic. And so the clients that we were getting were people who, we give this whole same spiel over and over with every consult. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. This is who's the best fit for this type of care. And, inevitably there'll be somebody who they don't necessarily ask for epidural, but they can't manage, having an epidural. for whatever reason. And so we saw a lot of that, and just people who really didn't take really good care of themselves and things like that during the prenatal process. So thankfully, those people have get back out, and we're getting more of the people that we tend to see in this space.
So one quick question that just came to mind. So you said the appointment's what, 45 minutes to an hour sometimes?
Yep.
So do you tend to run on time, or are you very similar to?
Nope, I run on time.
Okay. All right. Because I thought about that. I'm like, I can't imagine if those appointments that, so anyway.
Yeah. On time. If I have to travel, so I do all office visits for prenatal, and then I do postpartum visits at home. So sometimes, and before I got in office, I was doing all home visits. So at that point, give or take maybe 10, 15 minutes, I might be late just because of the travel and getting in traffic, or maybe an appointment before that ended later than I wanted to. So it, made me late for the next appointment. But now that I have an office, that kind of quells all of that. And so 9 times out of 10, we are on time. You might walk into somebody else's appointment just because they ran over, but I actually do it that way so that when that person comes in, your hour's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I had
so back oh, you have another question?
No, go on.
Oh, okay. Just thinking about my own care. Again, 3 pregnancies. I delivered at 3 different hospitals.
She's worldly.
Because I don't remember what happened at this. Whatever. I feel like something didn't jive right at the second hospital either.
You should. If you don't feel safe in one, you go to the next. So I agree.
Yeah. But it wasn't until my 3rd pregnancy, I feel like I was in heavy labor, like literally about to give birth, that they realized that I had an RH factor, right?
Wait,
so
they didn't know that beforehand?
No. 3rd child. So the reality, and I don't feel like I was, I had very good pregnancies. And I don't know if, my son's blood type was what triggered, like they figured out what his blood type was, and that triggered them to realize whatever. I don't know what it is. But I just remember, it was kind of like a panic, and it was like, oh snap, like, and they were like and they had to give me, I don't even know what they gave me, but they had to give me, I remember them giving me a shot of something, and I'm like, for what? Because I hate needles. How common is that?
Well, in the hospital, I can't speak upon, but we do a full panel of blood work. So either you come in so some people come, they found me in some way, shape or form, somewhere in their pregnancy, and then they connect with me. So if they've already done a prenatal panel, then I'm looking at, the labs that they've done, and basically it's a typing screen. So you would find out at that prenatal panel whether you are RH negative. And then if you are, then you should have gotten RhoGAM at 28 weeks, and then, a couple of days after baby, but they probably freaked out because you didn't get the first dose at
I didn't get any.
So, so essentially it's like your body attacks the baby. And so, you likely had it after your first birth, because you get sensitized after the first birth. So, should have gotten it every birth after that. So what happened, I don't know, but yeah, so these are the things. And now I don't know if maybe it wasn't like a standard of care to do, to test your blood type, but now it is. Most every hospital does it. It's a prenatal.
I don't know. I felt like I was constantly giving blood. I was constantly taking, And it felt overwhelmingly so, because like I said, I
Mhm.
hate needles. So
Yeah.
any little thing, it was just like, what is this? Why is this? Um, but that had me thinking like, oh, is that one of the reasons why, that initial screening for my first child came back where it looked like there was going to be, you know, some
Right.
issues,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well, no, because the RH factor is, like I said, more of your body attacking the baby. It basically, looks like
The
a
baby,
foreign
right.
entity. To have a genetic screen that came back flagged is something different. So yeah,
Completely different.
they could have done, the amniocentesis to confirm it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wasn't done yet.
So, but also, did they do so? Right now, what they do is there's two different tests. There's a nuchal translucency, which they do around 10 to 14 weeks. I'm sorry, 11 to 14 weeks, where they are looking at the back of the baby's neck to measure a certain measure the fold of the baby's neck to determine the likelihood, and then they do blood work. And so, if that comes back,
Mm.
elevated or whatever the numbers are, then they do a follow-up, more what is it called, detailed testing to confirm it. And then the NIPT test is blood work. So you don't even need to do, a lot of the invasive stuff, because it comes back just in the blood. And that's done between 10 and 14 weeks, 10 and 13 weeks, 10 or 14 weeks, something like that.
So I have another question again,
Yeah.
referring to me. With each of my pregnancies, I would get false
Mm,
negatives when I would
yeah.
take the test. Did that have anything to do with my blood
That's what we
type?
call dangerous in the hood, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a high risk, I would say I would have been looking at, is it the person who's drawing your blood? Is it an error? Like, if they leave the blood work out too long, could have been, I don't know, a variety of different things. But for me, if
Mm-hmm.
something comes back false positive or false negative, we're going to redo the test to confirm it. So yeah, especially.
That was, I mean, it was early, early. Like I wouldn't get a
Mhm,
positive until I was heading into my second trimester. So like the first trimester, it would be
mhm.
false negatives
For what though? Do you remember what test?
to confirm that I was pregnant.
Oh, got you. Okay, I think you're talking about
Hmm.
genetic. Yeah.
Oh, no, no,
So,
no.
well, it could have been a lot of things. Were you earlier or later than, the pregnancy test, if you're doing it like on the peeing on the stick, for instance, those tests back
Hmm.
again, we're talking about a while ago. So back then, technology or
Hmm.
the device may not have been as good as it is now. So you might have
Hmm.
try to test too early, where there wasn't enough hormones in the urine to be able to positively identify that pregnancy. Or it could have been, if they did blood work, it was again too early. And so usually if they see the HCG levels are a particular number, they have you come back, and we need to see it doubling over a particular amount of time to basically confirm a pregnancy.
Hmm.
And then they also have the dating ultrasound. So they do a bedside ultrasound to confirm pregnancy and viability. So yeah, technology has come a long way.
I have so as we're approaching the time, because I don't think I told you how long this would be, but
Mhm.
some people when they do lives, they tend to be on lives for like 2 hours, and it's just like, oh my God, guys, come on, wrap it up.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, so because you are so for lack of better term, so intimately involved with your clients, um, where
Move over. Yeah, the light reflecting off the mirror is kind
it's
of grainy.
magical, babe.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm an angel, so that's
Mhm.
Right.
It sounds good. No, no, don't do that. That's really
all right,
distracting.
all right,
Mhm.
all right, guys. Nothing to see here. So, is it how okay? So, being so intimately involved with the clients, what is the boundary that you have as kind of like a cutoff and a transition versus like the person 6 months from now is like, hey, I have a question. 9 months from now, hey, can you help me? Does that happen?
You mean after the postpartum?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like, are they like a lifelong friend now?
They are. They're family. I consider them family. These are all my babies, my nieces, my nephews. And so, yeah, even our last visit, it's, this isn't a goodbye, this is a see you later. And not because I think they're going to come back. Some of them do, but it's more so, keep in touch, send me pictures, let me know how you're doing. If you have questions and you need, referrals to somewhere, let me know. I may be able to connect you with the right people, especially because the majority of the people who do this type of care are looking for more holistic ways of doing things. And so that may not be pretty, well known, I guess, on the mainstream level. So if they call like, hey, baby 9 months old is going through XYZ, do you have any particular remedies, or do you know a doctor that I can send them to, chiropractor for their little one or for themselves, who do you suggest? So always connecting, always, available to whoever throughout the child span and the mom span life. So
Okay, so I wanted to, as we're closing, I wanted to run through a couple of stereotypes that are kind of often put out there. And I think this could be for doulas and midwives in the sense of just stereotypes. So,
Say the word, baby.
huh?
Say the word, not midwife. Say
no,
the word.
he's right.
I know, but what the term, the care term? Say the word.
Midwifery.
Yes.
Yeah, come on, man. Like,
Are you cursing at me right now? That's
I edited
crazy.
myself. We're having a serious conversation.
That's okay.
So, one of the stereotypes, they aren't well trained. Well, let's start there. Aren't well trained.
Yes. So I would say that is a myth. I'll speak on my behalf because I can't speak on everyone. So on my behalf, yes, I'm well trained. I went through, midwifery school, did a 2-year apprenticeship, gained lots of experience through that apprenticeship. But, I'm also still learning, and all of us are learning, whether you have been doing this for 2 years or 20 years. We're always learning because, like what I just explained to Leah, like what you did when your oldest was, when you were pregnant with your oldest is completely different than what we do now, right? So like the evolution of technology and information, et cetera, just evolves over time. So I can't ever say that I'm the expert in all things at all times because I'm still learning, and I'm still, there are going to be things that I'm going to experience or witness that I may never either experience or witness again, or I witnessed for the first time. Especially in this world, it's really hard to say it's an end all be all because birth and pregnancy, et cetera, is not linear. Things change, things happen. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. So with that said, the majority of us are trained in one way or the other. So, there's a nurse midwife who goes through nursing school, and then they do grad school and become a CNM. And then the way I did it, I started in nursing school. I didn't finish, but because I ended up getting a different degree, but I still have those 2 years of nursing school. Plus I worked 20 plus years in the medical field. So I have 20 years of clinical experience, et cetera, in addition to the midwifery training that I received. And then there's a traditional way where people go and they basically apprentice with a particular midwife for X amount of years. That can be, many years, but they're basically shadowing that person for a certain amount of time until they sign off on certain skills and et cetera to take the next step into midwifery.
One of the other stereotypes, can't help with pain.
No, so that's a myth as well. So I mean, I guess pain is relative for everyone. So, am I taking away the pain, or, any of the comfort measures that we're doing, is it taking away the pain? No. But the comfort measures that we provide or instruct on or educate on, they are a way for you to cope through that pain. So like Leah mentioned earlier, taking a hot shower during labor, like that was really comforting for her in that space, and she was able to get through a labor process to whatever point she did until she went in to the hospital. Even when you're in the hospital, you can do the shower, and the same thing with getting in the pool for the birth pool when you're at home. So there's a lots of that's why I always recommend a doula. If you know that you are not great with pain management, or just have a lot of anxiety or fear around it, having a doula to get you through that process, I highly recommend.
All right, so there's one more, and then we have a quick question. So, one of the other stereotypes is you stop caring after the delivery.
Nope. So I am with the mom up until 6 weeks, and then really lifelong after that. So I see clients after they give birth on day 2, day 3, day 2, day 5, day 7, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So lots of visits in the postpartum period to, one, make sure that they are transitioning well, that they are recovering well, but not just physically, but emotionally. You said the statement, and I chuckled because I say it all the time, whether it's your first baby or your fifth baby, every pregnancy and birth is different. And so you may have done really great the first one, but the fifth one, you're struggling. And so having those multiple visits allows me to have eyes on you, to make sure that you're getting connected to the proper resources. But sometimes it just means just talking through things, right? Because you may not know what to do in that moment, and just having some advice or some education on what's going on and why it's happening makes a world of difference for a lot of people.
Okay.
Speaking on multiple births, do you find that your clientele, for lack of better words, are in a specific age?
Nope, I had young people, I've had older people. Yeah. I would say 20s, the earliest. The oldest was probably mid-40s. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, all right. So here's the question. So there's two questions, but I'm just gonna pick the best one.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I don't want to say the best one. No offense.
That's not crazy. Well, you
I
said
know.
it.
I'm sorry. Rewind.
So now you got to read them both, because that's crazy.
We're at the. Come on, Leah. We have to treat this like a.
You have to read them both. That's crazy. Hurry up.
Oh my God. All right. So first question is, I am deciding on a doula, but I watched the documentary and it was a nightmare situation. Is there a way for me to screen potential doulas that I would want to choose?
Geez, what could a doula possibly do to have a nightmare? Well, other than, I always recommend interviewing people. So, I interview people all the time before I take them on as clients. And I imagine the majority of doulas do the same thing. So interview them, have a set of questions that are important to you. Make sure you ask them. And then, based on their answers, you make a decision if that feels like a good fit. I would definitely steer away from people who are not communicating well, who kind of ghost you when you really need them. And, but also understand that sometimes, even myself, like I work by myself. So I'm one person doing 100 things all the time, and I may not get back to you that moment you text me, but at some point within, that 24-hour period, you will get a response. I always tell people my email is my snail mail. So please don't send important information in the email. Text me, because I have my phone on me all the time. But with that said, it's really, I guess, I don't know what the nightmare situation could be with the doula, because they're supposed to be in a supportive world. But really it's about relationship and who you connect with, right? So if you have an interview and you're getting red flags from the answers that from the answers you asked, then, you know, that probably isn't the person that you want to be with. And then you also have, just like hospitals, you have the option, if things are not going well, to not go with that person and find someone else.
So the other question, I am 42 and I wanted to have my last child.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that I would be high risk,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe in taking a lot of holistic approaches. Is there a best method for me to explore to make this a reality?
Are they thinking of getting pregnant or to be in have an out of hospital experience would be my question. If they're thinking about getting pregnant, yes, I don't do it, but there's many places that you can connect with to do like holistic type of remedies and care modules and things like that for getting pregnant. And then if you are pregnant and you're looking for your options about whether to go to the hospital or to have a home birth, I mean, the main thing for me would be, you know, do you have any outlying complications, medical complications that would affect whether or not you can have a home birth and have out of hospital care? So the main ones are like hypertension, diabetes that it's uncontrolled, mainly any cardiac issues, blood disorders, things like that. All of those things are high risk for me. So, but you could do supportive care. So you can do something where you and I are connecting. We're doing lots of education during the prenatal period, but we're preparing you for a hospital birth. And in that case, we would do like a birth plan and, you know, how to do all the comfort measures and having a support team with you and things like that.
Okay. And I lied, the last question. So if you know, I'm completely done, but Leah wants to have like more kids, like what is the best way to resolve this tension in the house? Because I have zero interest. And I think she just loves being a mom from like, you know, the little stages. So do you have any advice to have me have some peace and sanity?
You probably need a couples therapist. But I mean, in reality, it's really about your life. Like, baby is only so little for so long, right? And so what is it going to look like a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever down the line? You know, is it something that you know, financially you can handle? Is it something that as a couple your relationship can handle? It's a very stressful period, and you know, it can't be taken lightly for a lot of people, even though people are like, you know, just have a baby, it will all work itself out. But I think we're in a time where like we should start thinking about things not just when we're pregnant, but even before we get pregnant, right? Making sure our bodies and our health is optimal before pregnancy, making sure we educate ourselves on options, whether home birth or hospital birth. And then once we are pregnant, taking care of ourselves and doing all the things so that we can remain healthy throughout. Those things will lower, you know, the complication risk. But then, you know, once your baby is here, what is your postpartum plan looking like? You know, do you have a village? Which I didn't mention, but I am starting a postpartum agency. So you can interview me again about that later.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so, you know, making sure that you have a good support team with you after baby. So it's not just like, hey, yeah, Nana's coming to visit. It's like, is Nana coming to help with the laundry, the food prep, the, you know, cleaning of the home, things like that, because those things are what is most important so that you can, you know, heal and be a good mom and family. So
super important. So just wanted to shout out, so Cutie Kara 2019, home birth mama here, age 40. Stephanie delivered my beautiful baby girl, who is now a precocious? Okay, precocious toddler. The most amazing and beautiful experience. So yeah, so all right. I mean, you know, I wish I have no interest, but you know, I wish if I can go back that Leah and I could have explored, you know what I mean? But it is what it is.
Yes, and
You're
I just
right.
want to, before we end up end, because you said that, I just wanted to shout out all my dads who are a part of this process. One of the things that's super important to me is to make sure that the fathers feel included in this process. And so,
Yeah.
whenever visits, I'm showing them how to do the palpation. I'm showing them how to find the fetal heart tone with the Doppler. And same thing with the siblings too. So they get so excited coming in. Even my littlest ones, I mean, they're like 1, 2 years old, and they know as soon as they come in, they walk to the box with the Doppler and the stethoscope, and they're like, "Mommy, when we gonna do, the assessment part?" So for me, this isn't just about providing care; it's really a family experience. And so I want to make sure anyone that wants to be a part of that feels that they're welcome to do.
So, and just in closing, so can you tell people how to best get in contact with you? Clearly, snail mail is not the best way.
Nope.
So can you tell people the best way to contact you, and any other like closing words that you would want to give the audience?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me would be through my website, rootsmidwiferyma.com. You can go on there and find out all the sort of what care would look like, and testimonials and things like that. But on my contact page, if you go through that, which I just have to say, I somehow broke the link today, so I apologize if anybody's going on there and they cannot schedule an appointment, but it's going to be fixed in the morning. So I was playing around and it was like my end of the year audit of like cleaning up systems and stuff. And somehow I deleted the Calendly account for my Roots Midwifery. Don't ask me how, I just did. But anyway, it's going to be fixed in the morning. So by tomorrow afternoon, if you do want to set up a consult with me, the best place to go is straight to my website on the contact page. Fill out the form there. It brings you to a Calendly link to set up the next available consult. And even if you're not really sure if home birth is for you, just set up the consult, ask some questions. You have 45 minutes to away. So feel free to do that. And, if you're a good fit, then we'll welcome you to the family. So I think that's it.
So,
yeah.
look at Stephanie. Okay. I mean, you come a long way from being a surgical scheduler, man. I mean,
long way.
Jeez Louise, Papa Cheese. So, it was an honor to have you on and connect, and I'm glad that we were your first. I mean, I hope it was as enjoyable for you as it was for us.
It was. I was nervous, and you like me, and your true Daniel energy. You made it really comfortable. And then Leah,
what a wholesome threesome.
To the seriousness and the importance of this call. So I appreciate her too. She went check.
Yeah, she's the manager. I mean, that's what everyone calls her. So, I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, thank you so much again. And I'm gonna have this on, and I'm gonna make some clips of it, and make some ads. So hopefully, it gets the word out a little more, and just makes people aware. And I think the service that you are providing, for our community in particular, is valued. I appreciate it. And I think, as a black dollar, you know what I'm saying? You are literally circulating, because even when I'm looking at your team, you are literally circulating and creating your own ecosystem to change the amount of time a dollar circulates in our community. So I appreciate it. And I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you. And it's just like damn,
we are.
Leah, I'm speaking because I knew her from, you know what I'm saying? I remember I used to open the door and see her, and I remember we was arguing about Kanye.
None of that matters. We are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyway, love you, and it was a pleasure. And thank you so much again. And we'll connect again once you set up the postpartum engine of your business.
Yes.
Babe, I think we should just go for another one so Stephanie could
come on.
Be...
Ready for you. Yeah, man. You got one.
All right, guys. This has been nice. Good night.
Oh, come on, come on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Wedlocked and Loaded signing out. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
All
having
right.
me. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you,
Good night.
Stephanie.
Good night.
Wedlocked and Loaded.
Wedlocked and loaded.